Meeting of the Falls Township Board of Supervisors. This is the 15th day of June, 2010. We'll start with the salute to the flag, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God save Falls.
Okay, Mrs. Pullen, take the roll, please.
Mr. Zupka?
Here.
Mrs. Wisniewski? Mr. Harvey?
Here.
Mr. Dent?
Here.
Mr. Sniggs?
Here. All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I
yes.
may, I did receive a phone call, actually only a few minutes ago. Mrs. Wisniewski is under the doctor's care. She is resting at home. Everything is, I'll say everything is okay, but she is under doctor's care and has to rest.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for letting us know. We glad to hear that she's doing better. We'll look forward to seeing her in the future. I want to begin the meeting with a moment of silence for two retired Falls Township police officers who passed away since our last meeting. Officer Elliot Bainbridge served in the Falls Township Police Department from 1955 until 1984. During his tenure, he distinguished himself many times through his work, and he retired with the rank of patrolman. John Rendiro served in the police department from 1955 to 1987, retiring as a lieutenant, also receiving many awards and commendations. Lieutenant Rendiro was well respected by the department personnel and provided quality leadership and outstanding service to the community. I know several of our current police officers, including some of the lieutenants, were actually hired by John Rendiro when they first came on the force, and I had the pleasure of knowing him and his family, and our thoughts and prayers go out to the families of Mr. Rendiro, or Lieutenant Rendiro, and Officer Bainbridge, both. We thank them obviously for a lifetime of service, and I'll ask for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Okay. All right, on our agenda this evening, as our first item, we have a presentation from our traffic engineers, traffic planning and design. Several months ago, the board asked traffic planning and design to put together an idea, a concept, or several concepts of what the township could do, what steps could be taken to make New Falls Road perhaps a little safer for pedestrians. For those that travel New Falls Road, you know that there are people that walk on the road every day, going to and from different places, yet there is no sidewalk, there's only a shoulder. And so there have been some concerns from people that live in the area, as well as from others, that it's perhaps unsafe. And we wanted to take a look just to see what options exist. We will not be voting tonight on taking any action. This is simply a presentation by our traffic engineers to give us an idea of what they looked at, some of the potential that exists for making it better, what the costs are, what the problems might be, and the board will take all of this under advisement. We'll have some comments and questions. We'll open up to public for comments and questions. And at some point in the future, we'll take all this information and we'll decide what, if any, action we want to take. I know Tony Doherty is here from Traffic Planning and Design, and so I'll turn the meeting over to him. He has some displays here, and allow him to go forward and make his presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Good evening. It's good to see you all again. As you stated, I'm Tony Doherty with Traffic Planning and Design. I brought with me tonight Vince DeFlavia from our office. He's also a principal at the firm in charge of the design unit that put these schematics together. We have 4 alternatives that we prepared that we would like to discuss with you tonight or present to you, and the associated preliminary costs that we have determined for those alternatives. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Vince to walk you through the details of each alternative.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question?
Yes.
If these two boards are the same, could we turn one around so
I think they're
everyone in the
different,
room
aren't
could,
they?
or are they
They're
different?
different boards. They're continuation of the corridor that I'm going to be discussing.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. So maybe if those of you on my left would want to see this better, you could move to the other side of the room and move up to the front if you want to. Sorry.
Thank you. Once again, my name is Vince DeFlavia. I put together the alternatives with my group as we were contracted to do. I'm going to present, as Tony suggested, 4 alternatives that we looked at, a combination of alternatives, some variations of those alternatives that the board and the residents can chew on and discuss and decide whether or not to move forward with them. So with that, I want to just give you the overall layout of the plans that we're going to present here. New Falls Road is beginning here, our beginning portion of a project. Hood Boulevard, Penn Valley Road. The plans are going to progress from here. I'm coming down to the bottom of the plan, going to the next board, and then finally on the bottom half of the second board is the progression down New Falls Road all the way to the further limits of our project here. So as we were contracted to do, we wanted to take a look at ways to try to promote safe pedestrian movement along the corridor and how we could do that with as least impacts as we possibly can. I know portions of this corridor have a lot going on, especially what I'm going to call New Falls Road, the north-south, and anything to the left of it, I'm going to call the west side. Anything to the bottom part of it, I'm going to call the east side. So that's how our alternatives are broken out.
All right, Mr. I can just stop here a second, Mr. DeFlavia. Just for point of reference then, Pennsbury High School, Vermilion Hills would be on the west side.
Yep.
Thorn Ridge would be on the east side for those that might be getting turned around with directions. But I just want to
Correct. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to walk through the first alternative. The first and second alternative are different in that one's the west side of New Falls Road. The second alternative will be the east side. The third alternative will be a combination of both of them at full length, and then the fourth one will be a combination with not the full length on both sides. So I'll step through them. Please feel free to stop me at any time during the presentation. If you have questions, you don't have to wait till the end. We can try to address them as I go forward. Once I get through the first two alternatives, the third and fourth are probably going to have the same issues as the first and second did, whether it was either in the first or the second alternative. So I will start now with the southern end, I'm going to call it, up at Penn Valley, Hood Boulevard, the west side alternative. What we looked at are four alternatives, but we also looked at 4 additional alternatives. The 4 alternatives, we have an 8-foot wide path. We have cost estimates also for a 5-foot wide path as well. So the plans right now reflect an 8-foot wide path, but we did do some cost for a 5-foot wide sidewalk. So as we progress from the gas station here, there's a few items that we need to correct here as far as getting the actual width to accommodate pedestrians. There could be potential parking or 2 lost at the corner to get that path in past the gas station. We've avoided some of the trees that are in front of the ball field here, snuck behind them so we didn't have to remove any of those trees or buffer area from the ball field area. As we progress down, we start running into some businesses and driveways. That's one of the key issues on the west side alternative that I see as a stumbling block or an issue that we need to address. Some of the driveways, when we do put the path in there or the sidewalk in there, we would need to redo the driveway so we can get the pedestrian accessible ramps in and make sure all the slopes for pedestrians to maneuver down the path effectively, make sure they meet requirement. As we progress down in front of the businesses, there's a few here that we would also be affecting some parking, some pull-in parking that you see in front of some of the businesses. So that's another issue that I see, especially in this particular area here. As you progress forward in front of the strip shopping center down here, we also have some utility poles that are in the existing in the existing right-of-way in front of the parking areas that would be affected by putting any sort of sidewalk or path through here, so they would need to get relocated. As you progress further down to the north, it starts getting a little bit easier on the west side of the path, the west side alternative, where we are in the back of the homes and the fenced area, where we have plenty of right-of-way that we can put in the 5-foot or 8-foot path through this area without too much effect or negative adverse effect in that area. Some of the others, let me step back a second, some of the other issues that we have in here are some of the areas are uncurbed. And we have no room to go and leave a buffer from the shoulder, the edge of the shoulder. We usually leave a 3 to 5 foot buffer and then a sidewalk or the path that we're putting in. Here, since we have the businesses parking and whatnot, we needed to curb this area because we could not move it back further into the property without really affecting these property owners and business owners. So some areas in here, we do show proposed curb. With proposed curb, you have proposed drainage issues, so we have taken into account any potential drainage facilities that would need to be added in here along with a curb, so there's not any ponding or standing water in front of those curbs. So as we progress down, like I said, as you get behind the homes, there's not too much of an effect as you get behind these homes and down near Vermillion Drive. There are a couple existing pedestrian crossings out there today that are areas that are, I guess, are feeding existing pedestrians getting from one neighborhood to the other. As we progress towards the bridge, down in front of or just south of the St. Joseph the Worker Elementary School, parochial school. Just one note on that, I think PennDOT has that. I don't know if they've started their construction on that to date. PennDOT does have on the books the rehabilitation of that bridge, which was slated to start sometime in the spring, but I guess it's a little bit behind schedule. Apparently there's a 4-month schedule on that bridge rehab that PennDOT's going to be doing. So, as we progress further down, we add a little more curbing since there's no curbing here as you pass the bridge and get down towards the apartment complexes down here on our northern end. So, to recap, on the western side of the alternatives, we have a lot of driveways, parking issues, some utilities that need to be relocated. With any effect that we have to these property owners, there's easements that will be needed so that you can do the work on the properties when you're doing a construction. It does link in with Vermillion Hills and their neighborhood and the crossing there. And it does service the businesses along the west side, so as well as the ball field and the high school that's back here. So those are some of the pros and cons of the west side alternative. I don't know if anyone had any questions with that now before I proceeded to the east side.
Well, I think it might be better if we just go through all the alternatives first, just so people get an idea of what's going on. It might be helpful with this, and maybe you could restate it later too, if you can give an idea just with this proposal you just talked about, what the prospective cost is that you've calculated. And
yeah, I did put the cost on here for this alternative. It's somewhere in the range of $600,000, and these are pretty conservative estimates with the feasibility phase that we're in now. It's not really hardcore engineering. It's very conservative. There's a contingency, 30% contingency involved with that cost. So it does have a lot of built-in, you know, we wanted to give you the higher end, not give you a short change, and then you go out there and build it, and it's more than you expected. So that's for the 8-foot wide path. If you went to the 5-foot wide path, it's down the $513,000 range, just with the reduction of the width in the path. So.
Okay.
These plans are oriented the same way, south to north, east side. This is the east side alternative number 2. On the east side, and I'm going to start from the south again and work the same progression. There's a lot of driveways, a lot of openings. One idea could be to reduce the number of openings and driveway accesses and try to have shared access. We didn't really show any closed driveways in this area, but that could be an alternative to make it a little bit easier to cross each of these businesses and shopping centers. Don't see too much of an effect in here as we go in front of the early part of the strip centers. As we get towards the end of the strip centers and into more of the residential portion of it, there's a lot of heavy brush and trees along the east side in this area. We didn't see much grade change in here and thought that this would be a nice way to get a path meandering in and out of the landscaped and green area with some removal, of course, of the brush and trees that would be in the way. A negative to that would be reducing some of the buffer between New Falls Road and the back of the residences along here. That could be handled with replacement of some of the landscaping that would be removed. That was taken into account with the cost estimate as well. And we just continued along, same way throughout the entire stretch. We tried to avoid as many trees as we could, which we got on our survey, our base survey that we used, and meandered down along the east side all the way down past St. Joe the Workers School again. So the east side, I didn't see as much conflict as far as any utilities, any property impacts, any easements that would be necessary. We didn't add any curb or any drainage to that portion on this alternative, since we were able to buffer ourselves from New Falls Road with that 3 to 5 foot buffer off the edge of the shoulders that are out there today. So that was a fairly encouraging alternative that we did look at. Trying to see if there's any other items on this alternative that, other than the tree removal and brush and tree removal that we show on here. I don't think there was any other big issues that I see on here. On these plans, there's red markings which show all the issue type items that we did look at as far as the driveways and property owner impacts and utilities. So it's a little bit easier for you guys to see what stands out, what could be the issues, what we need to do to move forward. So this cost came in at around $355,000, so it's significantly less than the west side of the alternative, mainly because of the impacts to each of the business owners, the easements needed, the curbing and drainage that we would need to add on the west side where it is uncurbed. So that's pretty much the major reason for the price differential in that alternative. So, and with that, we can move on to the third alternative. I don't think we'll have to spend much time on this one. Third alternative we did show was both the west side and the east side together. So, same issues that I just stepped through with alternative 1 and 2. Cost would be the combination of alternative 1 and 2 is $955,000. So this does serve both the neighborhoods, which is the plus on this alternative. The cost obviously could be prohibitive, and you still run into the same issues that you had on alternatives 1 and 2: landscape, tree removal, drainage, curbing, easements. So that's really alternative 3 is just a combination of the two, full and they're full length. The fourth alternative, we took a look at trying to be able to service the neighborhoods a little bit better and not be able to touch too much of the west side in the area of the business and parking areas and utility areas that can become costly, can become hard to deal with property owners. So we try to look at a combination of the two alternatives that would be least impactful to the community here. So on this alternative, we started on the east side from the southern end at Penn Valley Road, took it across, and where we had the second pedestrian crossing at Vermilion Hills, we crossed over towards the end where it serviced the apartment complex down here. So that was this alternative that we took a look at. Obviously, there could be several other combinations that we can talk about or that we can entertain or that you guys may see as something that may be more useful, maybe more efficient, maybe more cost effective. So that's, basically the four alternatives are there. They can be mixed and changed as the board or as the residents suggest or as they recommend other alternatives. So this alternative ended up costing somewhere in the area of $482,000. So it's kind of in the middle of the west and east alternatives. And I think that's pretty much all I have on the plans and the alternatives that we put together at this point. So at that point, I can open it to questions from the board or from the residents.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Obviously, you did what we asked you to do. You took a look at a lot of alternatives, pretty much every possible alternative, going with one side, going with the other side, both, some mixture of the two. It's important, too, I want to point out that a lot of the prices you were quoting were for an 8-foot wide path. And then there's also, obviously, you quoted a lot for a 5-foot wide path. In general, the cheapest alternative, again, just the ballpark figures, because as you said yourself, this is not sort of the hardcore engineering yet, it's more concept plan. But as you also said, you did sort of highball just to be safe.
That's correct.
You wanted to give us the higher estimate, which is fine. We appreciate that. The cheapest alternative would be a 5-foot wide path just going on the east side, the Thornridge side, which you have as $273,000. The most expensive would be going both sides completely with an 8-foot path, which would be almost $1 million. So obviously a very, very big range. That being said, I want to turn it over to board members for some comments and questions, and then we'll turn over to the public for comments and questions. And again, just a reminder, we're not voting on this evening. We wanted to hear the presentation. We wanted to let you hear the presentation. What actions we take, we don't know at this point yet. And so just keeping that in mind, this is not something we're going to start building tomorrow. We're just looking for some input. We wanted to hear it and have some questions asked, and we wanted to hear your input. So, Mr. Zupka.
No, I'd like to hear from the residents. I really don't have any.
Okay.
At this time.
Mr. Snipes?
Yeah, a question I think for all of us, and the residents might want to chime in on this too, is in terms of deciding which side of the road to work on, I guess two questions. One is how do we create people, if we don't decide the two sides, then if we just choose one side, then we're going to have people crossing the road, obviously at some point. So I'm wondering, how do we do that safely? And another question I have is, where is most of the foot traffic and bike traffic coming from and going to? I see a lot of kids up at the intersection toward the high school milling around. I do see people waiting at the bus and moving from in front of the apartment buildings up, I guess that's on the west side. Of course, there's St. Joseph the Worker on the east side, and there's a lot of movement around there. But I'd be interested in hearing from other people, where do you think most of the traffic, especially of kids on bikes and walking, is going? I think that should influence a lot of where it's coming from and where it's going, would influence a lot of where we would want to put this. So those are two questions I had about the safe crossing and then where is the traffic coming and going.
Well, yeah, I can't really speak too much on the second part of the question. That would probably be more the residents. We didn't look into that as part of this feasibility study. The first part, the first question you have is a very good question. How do we safely cross pedestrians if we only have it on one side? To answer that, there's several alternatives that you can use as far as flashing pedestrian type devices, warning motorists. They can be activated only when someone's crossing the road, so they're not constantly flashing, and then motorists tend to lose interest in obeying those. So that's one alternative. You're not going to avoid the pedestrian that's going to still walk on the shoulder on the side that the sidewalk may or may not be on. Vehicle code allows for pedestrians to walk on shoulders if there's no sidewalk. That's part of the Pennsylvania Vehicle Code. If there is a sidewalk, it is illegal for them to walk on the shoulder. So if it's on one side and they're walking on that side with the sidewalk, it is illegal for them to do that. If it's on the other side that they're walking and the path is not there, they're allowed to do that in a safe manner. But to cross the pedestrians, there are some alternatives to use to warn motorists that pedestrians are crossing the street. Highly more visible pavement markings are another. Advanced warning signs, things of that nature can be added to the approaches on New Falls Road to those crossings.
So obviously people now that are crossing the road are just crossing it whenever and wherever they can figure out how to do it or feel that it's safe. So I guess one of the questions is, if we add particular cross points, are we encouraging people to cross who otherwise might not have crossed, or are we providing a safe crossing for people that need to cross them?
These alternatives don't add any crossings to the ones you guys already have. That's not what we were trying to do. We weren't trying to add a lot of non-controlled crossings. We basically utilized the two that were out there today. Obviously, if we did proceed with moving forward, we can take a look at any of the accident or crash records that are in the township or with PennDOT to see if there's any history of pedestrian accidents, and if so, what we can do to correct them. So, like I said, we're not adding any additional crossing points. Pedestrians may cross at different areas now at the sidewalks there, but we're not marking anything additional for them to do at other places that they don't normally do it today.
Okay, that's good to know. Just one last thing is, whatever we do that is going to slow traffic down, whether it's a flashing light or whether it's just, more obviously painted crosswalks or whatever, I think is a good idea. I think everybody just needs to slow the heck down everywhere, wherever they are, all over the township. I know some folks don't want that because, they want to get where they're going to go as fast as they want to go. So half the population wants us all to slow down. The other half is annoyed if they have to slow down because they're trying to get somewhere, and I understand that. But on a busy road like that with a lot of traffic and lots of people walking, whatever we can do to kind of have people drive more reasonably and slower, I think is a good thing. But that's all for now.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dents?
What kind of material is the path made out of? Is it concrete or is it asphalt?
It can go either way. The bitumen, we looked at both costs. The bituminous is the most logical way to go. It's a little cheaper way to go. It's usually a 4-inch depth with a 6-inch stone subbase. Same thing with sidewalk. It's a little bit more costly to do the concrete, but it could be either material, either of those two materials.
And your cost did include relocating utilities, or was that not included?
The cost for the utilities was not included. We gave an anticipated number of poles that would need to be relocated and a cost per pole at the base of those estimates that were provided.
Okay.
It's generally in the area of $10,000 to $15,000 a pole, depending on what lines are on this pole. So it can add up, and then you have to look for easements to put the poles on with the property owners. So it can add up pretty quickly.
Well.
Excuse me?
Legal fees as well.
Yes.
Well, that's all I had.
Okay. I had a couple questions. Are there any difficulties in terms of this being a state road? How does that maybe add to the hoops we have to jump through?
Sure. The process that we would take at this current point, if we were to move forward, we would go through the highway occupancy permit process with PennDOT. Anything that is built within PennDOT's right-of-way needs to be approved by PennDOT. So we would follow that procedure. We would prepare plans on behalf of the township. The township would submit them to PennDOT. PennDOT would be open to review what it is that we presented on the plans for the township. We receive comments back from them, address them, meet with them to discuss any of their concerns, iron out any of the issues that we may have, resubmit the plans. Once all the paperwork and all the technical plans are done, PennDOT would provide a permit for you guys to build it. What also would probably be needed with the the sidewalk or the path that gets built, since it is within the easement, within the right-of-way, there'd be a sidewalk easement or agreement that the township would make with PennDOT. PennDOT doesn't maintain sidewalks or paths, so that maintenance would fall back onto the township. So that easement would need to be created and executed.
Okay. In terms of a couple of the questions I had, have you worked on projects like this, similar projects, state roads, sort of busy state road, no sidewalks, in municipalities, whether like ours or not like ours, but I guess more the road being similar to other projects. Have you worked on things like this before?
Yeah, we've done several projects with nature of this. Actually, over in Lower Makefield, we worked on one. It used to be a state road. It's now a township road. They asked us to look at something similar, leading down to their towpath. So we did put together plans, had them fully executed. It hasn't been constructed yet because they're trying to find funding to do that. Some of the same issues. Some of it was a little bit more challenging on that one, had a little more vertical and horizontal on it. Had a couple easements that we do have to execute. Some of the environmental issues, which we don't really have here.
Was that a road, I'm not familiar with the road you're on, but was that a road that's as busy as this one?
No, I wouldn't say it is as busy as this one. It's Black Rock Road. It's
All right.
definitely not as high trafficked as New Falls Road would be.
Yeah, because that's certainly one of the concerns, and one of the reasons why I wanted to see this, kind of idea, or your ideas rather. We know there are people on it now. Most of the people I see are kids, teenagers riding bikes, walking wherever they're walking, obviously from either Vermillion or from Thornridge, walking up toward the strip centers, toward either on either side. Usually more the Thornridge side. Maybe they're walking to school, maybe they're walking to friends' houses somewhere else. But we're walking home from school. I see kids on bikes and walking home from school. When I'm coming home from work, and it certainly doesn't look safe. To have them walking there. And in my mind, if we know that there's an area that's not safe, we have an obligation to see if we can make it safer. I think just to close your eyes and just, gee, I hope nobody gets hit, that's not fulfilling our responsibility. And so that's really why I wanted to see this. But I guess the question I have is, this is a very busy road. And has this been done, or do you have experience with this being done on a road this busy? I'm not so much worried about the utilities issues and how to get around that, but on a road this busy, have you seen this work?
Yeah, well, a lot of our private projects, the PennDOT and the townships even require the developer to put in sidewalks. So we're constantly looking at these issues along the frontage and even beyond the frontage where we're doing work to see where pedestrians are coming from, where they're going, how we're going to service them. PennDOT's becoming a lot more keen to pedestrian activity and pedestrian safety and how we can accommodate them and how we can reduce lane widths to be able to put sidewalks. So we're constantly looking at them with our private projects and even our public sector projects. PennDOT has that in as one of their checklists now, to look at our peds out there, if so, where are they coming from, where are they going to, how are they using the facilities, is there sidewalk? So we're constantly, as a firm, required to and want to look at ways that we can help the safety of not only the motorists, but the pedestrians as well. So yes, almost every one of our projects do address the pedestrian issues and the speeds of the road and the functionality of the road, whether it's an arterial or a collector, a local street. So yes, we do constantly look at projects similar to this as far as the number of vehicles and the speed that they're traveling on that particular facility.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. I have a. Go ahead. Okay.
You said that it's a PennDOT road now, but if we do this path or so, that we'd be responsible for maintenance of it. I guess that would
Just the
include
path.
snow plowing.
Just
of
the path.
The path, yes, not the road.
So they're not going to have anything to do with the path. Just
No.
that would all be on the township.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I have a couple other questions, but I want to hear some public comment first, and maybe my question will get asked by somebody else. So is there a motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
Ooh, second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Mr. Mariani.
Guido Mariani, Falls Township.
I'm not sure, Mr. Mariani, I'm not sure that's on. Can you check that, see if that's on?
We'll try it. No.
Does it sound like it's on? Now it's on. Okay, there we go.
It's all right now?
Thank you.
Thank you. Since this board's not voting on this project, then I'll call it a proposed future tax increase rather than a new future tax increase. Now, sidewalks should be built in areas where a need can be clearly established. Now, presently, bicyclists and pedestrians are not prohibited by law from using New Falls Road. Now, I've clocked this road for months, okay? 6 times a day, up and down New Falls Road. The largest number of pedestrians I've ever seen at any one time were 2. Once, I saw 3 people. I've only seen a bicyclist once. Now, you can check out other circumstances that would warrant a sidewalk. I see no worn paths along the sides that would indicate substantial uses. St. Joseph the Worker School is closed. It's not going to open again. I don't know of any large recreational area and no development in that area right now that would generate a large volume of pedestrian traffic. Now, there is, I would say, a scarcity of population and other factors there that would indicate an absence of need, and the cost, $955,000, $600,000, the cost of establishing these pavements is excessive. It's excessively disproportionate to the need and the probable use. But maybe some people feel if we build it, they will come. They're not there now. Now, please watch the consequences and the cost after the initial outlay, which I constantly harp on, and sometimes I think the board seldom considers. This roadway has to be balanced with the needs of pedestrians, and the sidewalks must be accessible according to ADA regulations. That's a hurdle. You set a width of at least 5 feet, which is, I think, what ADA calls for, because you have to have passing spaces and you have to have turns for those people who use wheelchairs. The future repaving of this road, even though it's a PennDOT thing, is going to require that it has to be milled, because you just can't put asphalt on top of asphalt, and makes it difficult for people with wheelchairs or pedestrians. Any new building construction that we have along that road are going to be required to be accessible under Title II and III of the ADA. Building entrances now have to be graded with the sidewalks, and you know, I think that's a detriment. Now, we're going to need, which we don't have now, crosswood sections, corner cuts, new traffic lights, LED, of course, we put them up, because people are going to want to go back and forth. There's no need for that now because you don't have that kind of traffic. You're going to have new maintenance costs. Sidewalks are going to have to be maintained, snow removal, which you don't have now, difficulties of overhanging bushes, pedestrian signs. You're going to need trash receptacles, because if you build it, they will come. See? This, believe me, is just another unnecessary, and it's an unwanted project. We don't need it. We don't want it. I'm asking this board, please walk away from this thing. It's excessive, and it's not going to serve anybody. It's going to create accidents where you don't have them now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Obert?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Carlos Obert. Some of the things Mr. Mariani he covered, but I'm going to recover them just because I like to repeat it in case you guys didn't hear it the first time. St. Joseph's School is closing, which loses approximately 200 students. you have no need for crossing from school to Vermilion Hills because of no students. I'm not talking about normal pedestrian traffic. I'm talking about students. Going to do away with the crossing guards, 2 crossing guards on New Falls Road. And
Yeah, Ms. Jarber, can you speak in the microphone, please, a little bit louder?
I can do it. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, I don't want to scare you out of your pants with that, but that's for sure. But I have a question for you. Has anybody done a history of the pedestrian accidents on New Falls Road for the last 45 years, which that road was designed not to have sidewalks? It was going to be a business area, and that's the way it is right now. I saw something today that kind of tickled my bones a little bit, and I was having a quick snack at Burger King there at New Falls and Hood, and I saw this lady leave the side door at Burger King, and instead of going from the side door all the way up to the corner to the traffic light, cross the street and wait for the thing, and then go back down in front of Pennsbury High School, and she's got to be 80, and she didn't pay any attention to that. She went right across Hood Boulevard. Okay, there's sidewalks on both sides and there's curbs on both sides. She didn't pay any attention to it. Okay, because at her age, she's not going to walk that extra distance. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. She wanted to go from point A to point B. She didn't want to go to point A to point C, D, E, F, and G to get to point B. Okay? Illegal walking on shoulders. Who's going to enforce illegal walking on shoulders? You don't enforce people walking on a street in the whole darn town, Fairless Hills and Levittown. I can sit there at lunchtime and watch students and teachers come out of Pennsbury High School and walk right across the street and not use any intersection or crosswalks. I didn't catch the prices on the alternates 1, 2, 3, and 4, but I'll pick that up on the thing. And I know you're not going to. I hope you're not going to vote on it tonight.
No, I already said twice. We're not voting on it tonight.
Okay. 45, 50 years ago, this road was not designed for sidewalks, was not designed for pedestrian traffic. And now you got all the businesses, and they've built up right to the very oomph to the street as they possibly can. Now you're going to start making everybody move back. You're going to have fill in some areas if you happen to, I'm going to say the east side of New Falls Road. Okay, gentlemen, we've already spent, what, $40,000 on a survey? And I totally agree with Mr. Mariani. I think that we're throwing, stones in a bucket. And I would like to know if all of these drawings will be available tomorrow if I decide to come up and take a look at it, because I sat on the other side here tonight, and the gentleman with the laser pointer, he went from all over the drawings, and I used to do engineering drawings, and you can't see them from that distance, and neither can the people behind us. I would suggest that from now on we have a screen, and they have these things on slides, and put it up there so people can really see what's going on, because watch the people behind me. Okay, they're looking, and I'm looking, I say, what's that blue line? What's that red line? What's those words? What's this mean? I don't know a thing. So I think that there's a lot to be desired on this project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mrs. Brown.
I'm sitting listening to this tonight. I've lived in Falls Township since 1956. I go up and down the road that you're talking about all the time with my son, my daughter. It has not gotten any worse than it ever was. You are not going to force people to use sidewalks. They're going to do what they want, no matter what you do. And to me, this is a total waste for the township. Leave the road alone and the section alone, because you do not need all this. I have observed, because we go to the Burger King a lot, I have observed different things in different times, and there's no big problem. There really isn't. So I think myself, if you go ahead with this and spend this money, it's a total waste. And like I said, I've lived here since 1956, and I haven't noticed that big of a difference in that road. So, you know, you can go your own way and the way you want to go, but that's the way I feel.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mrs. Snipes?
Melanie Doty Snipes, Falls Township. When I moved here 6 years ago from Philadelphia, one of the first things I noticed was that there are so many places without sidewalks. It was one of the most appalling things that I had to kind of wrap my mind around. And I think the money that we need to spend on this project is money correcting a problem that was created 50 years ago. I mean, there should never be communities created without sidewalks. And the fact that we have spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on roads and really made this community really only accessible to people with cars with very little public transit is shameful. It's shameful, it's irresponsible, it's unethical, and it's unhealthy. When I moved from Philadelphia, I will admit, though it's personal, I gained 16 pounds in 6 months. I mean, I was doing so much less walking than I had done in Philadelphia. And that is because I had to buy a car when I moved here, and then I just drove from place to place. So I think this project is really connected to the reconstruction of a community where people actually make physical contact with their bodies on a bicycle or with their feet in their community, where they might actually run into a neighbor or notice the seasons changing and not spend all their time in their cars going from air conditioning to air conditioning. So personally, I have been in favor of this project with all my heart and soul. I would love to see this township do the responsible thing of constructing a healthy and safe community for people of all mobilities, on foot, on bike, as well as cars. We truly have spent millions of dollars on roads. It's time to spend some money on health and safety. So thank you so much. Wonderful job. Awesome research. I mean, I think it's so exciting. And thank you so much. Go sidewalks.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mrs. Sheehan? Comes your other wife.
She's passionate.
I think it's one of those radical environmentalists we don't want to get rid of.
Which one?
I'm Regula Sheehan. I have lived here for 26 years in Falls Township. Lower Bucks County, I've been living here since '51. I'm European, and what we lack over here is the public transportation, plus sidewalks, which haven't been invented yet, because I don't see any sidewalks on Lincoln Highway. And I see people walking there, and I have my heart in my mouth anytime I see somebody walking there. It's impossible. Why do I have to buy a car to go a quarter mile to a grocery store? Can anybody explain that to me? Because there is a big pass mark up the road from me. I can't walk there. You can't drive, you can't pedal a bike over there. It can't be done. Anybody who invents sidewalks, good luck to you. But where are the bicycle roads for that? Do you attach a bicycle paths to a sidewalk in this country, or do you have them riding around on pedestrian and ride down the pedestrians because kids don't watch anything. What about skateboards and all that? I don't know. You've got to rethink that a little bit. But go ahead and invent sidewalks. Maybe it'll work.
Okay,
Can I
thank you.
interject there at
Sure,
her
yeah,
last
yeah.
couple statements there? The difference in the 8-foot path and the 5-foot path, the 8-foot path lends itself to pedestrians as well as bicyclists. So that's one of the reasons for the 8-foot wide path, to try to make it multi-use for vehicles, for bicycles and pedestrians. The 5-foot sidewalk is more for pedestrians to use. So that's basically the paths that you see and the trails that you see usually have a 10 to 12-foot path, which is accommodating to all users, skateboarders, rollerbladers, bicyclists, and pedestrians themselves. So.
Okay, thank you. Other comments or questions?
Yes, I'd like to be funny. I want a sidewalk from my house to Tiger Road so I can get to the park.
Okay. All right, any other comments or questions? I see none. All right, is there a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, Mr. Zupke, you had passed on speaking earlier. Would you have an interest in speaking now or asking questions?
Well, no real questions, but I've said for many years we've been redoing our roads, we've been redoing our sidewalks, and we have more people walking in the street out there. They don't use the sidewalks. I really don't believe that this project is going to put people on the sidewalks. They're going to continue. If they do walk out on the road, they're going to continue to do it. I grew up in Philadelphia. People walked on the sidewalks. You come out here, people seem to think they can walk on the street. They don't have any reflectors. It gets at night. They're out in the street. Mothers are pushing their carriages with their children in it, and it's dark out. They create traffic issues. It's just like the speeding in our township. We have to, if it really is a law, that people, if there's sidewalks that are supposed to be on the sidewalks, then the only way we're going to do it is to enforce it. And frankly, that's not going to happen. People are going to continue to use it. I know some of the, I'll say some of the senior citizens don't like the new sidewalks we put in because the driveways are on an angle. They're walking along, they hit, maybe it's only a 4-degree slope, but they tend to lose their balance and end up out in the street, so they want to walk on the street. Couple of the people that are out there that I've actually stopped and asked, why are they walking in the street? Because they say, well, the sidewalks aren't wide enough for the three of us to walk together. So they go out in the street and walk shoulder to shoulder, 3 across, and traffic can't get past them. Just because if we don't build this, we're not taking responsibility to help people. People are going to do what they want to do. So what happens? We spend $500,000, $1 million to do this, and the first person that decides to walk down the street gets hit by a car. Is that going to come back on us because we didn't enforce that they have to walk on the path? We're better off not, you know. I think we're trying to build something that, again, isn't needed and people aren't going to use unless they're absolutely forced to, and we aren't going to be able to force them to do it. But.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Snipes, Mr. Dents, any comments after hearing public comment?
No, I have none.
Yeah, one question I had with the design, and it's kind of hard to picture exactly what it'll look like when it's in place. And you mentioned utility poles. At one point you mentioned pulling the path back behind trees or behind utility poles. I wonder if there's a way to think of this if, obviously security is one of our biggest issues. Obviously, the more kind of barriers there would be between the path itself and the road, the better, I would think. Could you comment at all on where in this concept you have, just pick any one of the 4 options, how the idea of some kind of barrier impacts the barrier between the road? I don't mean like a long concrete barrier. I mean just individual things.
The buffer area that you're referring to is something that allows for the driver and the pedestrian to feel more comfortable that they're not on top of each other. So the recommended is a 3 to 5 foot buffer area. That's usually a grass area. Where there's not enough room to do that, there's barrier curb, which I introduced in some of the areas where there wasn't curb. So some of those amenities are there just to, as it states, is a buffer area for pedestrians to use. Some of them may be the trees, as I'm sneaking around the back of the trees, in and out of some of these areas. But that's pretty much what I have for that question.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an opportunity to plant trees where they now don't exist, if there's a buffer area wide enough to do that. Again, to create at least a visual or a psychological distance so that this is for cars over here, this is for walkers over here.
Yeah, certainly there's ability, if possible, to landscape it, trees, flowers, shrubs,
right,
to do that, yes.
Thank you. The only other thought I had, Mr. Chairman, was that at least one or maybe two speakers tonight said that this might not be the area where we have the most pedestrian traffic or that's most needed. This is an area. The reason we talked about this is because a number of residents have come to us and said, this is an issue, what can we do about it? But perhaps there are other areas that other residents are thinking about where they think that this is more of an issue, more dangerous intersections, or an area where folks are walking. Mrs. Sheehan mentioned Route 1, which I see all the time. I'm sure as I drive home tonight, I'm going to see people in the dark walking along Route 1. In black clothes, she says, right. So I'd be interested in hearing from residents if there are other areas where this might actually be even more needed than this.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, a couple issues that were brought up by different speakers I just wanted to address. Quite a few times people talked about building new sidewalks, and that wasn't really the way I envisioned it. I think there's already a lot of sidewalks, certainly, at the Thornridge Shopping Center, pretty much from across from where JoJo's is all the way up to the corner of Penn Valley Road, there are sidewalks there. And so that's not an issue. Going down to the bridge that's just, I guess just south of where St. Joseph's Workers School and Church, there's a sidewalk there on that bridge. There isn't really anything past that, near the church. And obviously, I hear the concern about obviously the school closing, but of course the church isn't closing. So there is a shoulder on that side. When I see people walking, and it's every day, I see people walking and riding bikes every day. And I've seen groups, in many cases it's single people, 2 people. I've seen groups of 3 or 4, usually kids. But they're always on that side, always on the Thornridge side, because there's a wide shoulder there. And certainly we wouldn't necessarily be talking about building something new there. If there's already a shoulder there, could we just, use part of that? So in terms of building new sidewalks, which some people had said, I don't want to give people the idea that we're necessarily doing that. Where there are already sidewalks, I don't think we should rip them up and put new ones down. If they're already there, then what's wrong? We'll just use those. A comment was made about any new buildings that are built must meet the new sidewalk. In this area, I'm not really sure where there would be any new buildings constructed, quite frankly. Similar comment by a different speaker about all the buildings are up close to the road and we'd have to move them back. I think actually in this area, most of the buildings are back from the road. I don't really, I can't really think of too many that are up real close to the road. Most of the, the Vermilion Hills Shopping Center, Thornridge Shopping Center, they're back off the road. So I didn't really see that as an issue. Illegal walking on shoulders brings up a point that Mr. DeFlavia mentioned, and I wanted to have you kind of repeat. Because maybe, the alternative, I guess, if is there a way we could dissuade people from walking on the shoulder if we think it's unsafe for them to be walking on the shoulder? Obviously, we can't stop everybody, but if we think it's unsafe, signage or something. But you said that if there is no sidewalk, they have a right under state law to walk on the shoulder. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
No sidewalk, they're allowed to walk on shoulder. If there's no shoulder, they're actually allowed to walk still on the roadway at their discretion. So it's still illegal for them to walk there without any sort of sidewalk present.
Okay.
Well, how about if you build a path and it's within, say, 4 foot of the roadway? Don't we have to put a guardrail up, or then we would be negligent if a car swerved onto the path and hit somebody? So we have to put guardrails up all along this? I didn't see where that's part of your plan.
Now, guardrails looked at specifically for areas where you have great grade changes. Where sidewalks and paths occur, there are requirements. Like I said, that buffer area, 3 to 5 feet. If you don't have that, you put barrier curb, which we've done in places. So guide rail is not necessarily needed in these types of areas. It is looked at. It's not dismissed, but it's not, in general, if you have those requirements, you fulfill those buffer areas or you have that barrier curb, the guide rail is normally not needed in those type of areas.
Right. And actually, Mr. Zupka beat me to the punch. That was actually my next question, because one of the concerns I do have is even if we do something modest, something from where that bridge is up to the beginning of Thornridge Shopping Center, just that section behind Thornridge where there is a wide shoulder, and I see a lot of people walking and there's no sidewalk. In my mind, if the walkway, if we're just using the shoulder and maybe adding a little bit to it, if the walkway is the same level as the road, to me it does, like Mr. Zupka said, does create a hazard of someone, falling asleep, looking, texting while driving, doing something, and there's nothing to stop that car from drifting off into, there's no curb, there's nothing there, no physical impediment. I would be interested, you don't have to answer me right now, unless you have some ideas off the top of your head, but I'd be interested in knowing what kind of physical barriers we could put up to shield pedestrians or bicyclists or skateboarders or people with baby carriages from cars, if we're going to do that at all. Are curbs the only option? Could we do maybe not necessarily guardrails, but sort of bollards linked with chain? We can make it as decorative as we wanted to, I guess, but some kind of physical barrier.
PennDOT's pretty stringent on those type of materials that are used as barrier. So bollards probably isn't one that is in their toolbox. The most likely one would be the guide rail, as you had indicated. That becomes another maintenance potential issue for the township to maintain, another obstruction to hit. Today there's trees, there's utility poles, there's a lot of things roadsides that errant vehicles can hit. So introducing a sidewalk, I don't think is something that's going to introduce any new problems to any errant vehicles that still have the potential to hit other fixed objects that are off the side of the roads that are there today. So.
Okay. All right. Okay, I think that was, those are all the questions I had. Okay, I want to thank you, Mr. DeFlavia, as well as Mr. Doherty, for all the work you put in, the rest of their team for all the work you put into this. Again, very, very complete plans, and I appreciate all the work that went into it and your work this evening. You're obviously very knowledgeable about this, and the board will take it under advisement. We'll make a decision at some point in the future if this is something we want to move forward on, if we are going to go back and study it a little more. But I wanted to make sure we had this public viewing of the information and have them listen to you as well, and we can move forward with an intelligent decision at this point. Mr. Snipes.
Yeah, one last thought, one last question. In terms of the permits that we need, I guess from PennDOT or other agencies, if we were, let me back up and say, when we built the trails to the public park, I think it was really a 10-year process. I know that was a federal
That was a
grant.
federal thing, yes.
Laid a whole other level of hoops to jump through on us. But is this a project that's going to take us 10 years if we were to decide to do this? If we as a community come up with a plan that we think works, we choose one of the options or a combination of them?
If you go the HOP route, the highway occupancy route, no, it won't take you that long. If you start introducing any sort of grant, federal, state money,
right,
it puts you into a different set of plans, a different way to produce plans, different way to present plans to PennDOT. Could take you a couple years to do. Permits that you would need here if it went through the HOP process at PennDOT is actually the highway occupancy permit and any conservation district erosion and sedimentation control plans that you'd have to put together. So you're talking anywhere from a year to 18 months to get those approvals.
Okay. So a year, 18 months just to get the approvals that we would need. Okay.
Yeah, at most. I mean, this is not too complicated a project as far as what its intent is and what the technical detail would be. So once you get started on design, do the design, submit it once or twice to PennDOT, and finally get the approvals to do so, you're talking a year to 18 months, plus the time you put it out for advertisement and bid.
Right.
So you're probably talking about 2 years to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Dylan,
Mr.
very
Harvey, and the
much.
rest of the
Appreciate
board, as well as the residents. I appreciate it. I will leave the boards here with you guys
Sure.
for
Appreciate
public
that.
viewing.
Yeah.
If there's any questions, certainly reach out to myself or to Tony from my office. We can certainly respond to any further questions that weren't here tonight. If you guys wanted to collect any and shoot them our way, we can certainly address them. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Gray, why don't we can leave those up on the easels even through maybe the rest of the week. We'll just leave them in here up on the easels. Is that all right?
That's fine. That's
Okay.
fine.
All right, for anybody that wants to come see them. Okay. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. All right, I'm going to move on with the rest of our agenda here. Actually, I want to correct a little oversight on my part. I apologize to our solicitor this evening. Michelle Mintz is with the firm of Rudolph, Clark & Kirk, and she is here this evening, sitting in for Mike Clark, who had to be at another meeting. So, Ms. Mintz, thank you for being here. All right. I won't tell Mr. Clark you said that. Comments about Mr. Clark not looking as good as Ms. Mintz. But all right, item number 2 on our agenda is consider awarding insurance contract for, this is for property and general liability and public liability. Mr. Gray?
Yes. On June 10th, I received quotes for insurance from Jerry Vaughn regarding the upcoming insurance proposal for the period beginning June 18, 2010 and ending June 18, 2011. 4 insurance companies provided quotes. They are as follows: National Casualty for $411,748, Travelers and the Zurich Program for $267,083, Americana $365,790, and Trident MRM for $343,068. Last year, the township paid 2 travelers for the 2009-2010 insurance policy year, $277,613. If the township were to choose travelers, this would result in a decrease of 4% over the prior year, or $10,462. This is also a $62,000 reduction in premium since the 2006-2007 year. At this time, the board is asked to consider choosing Travelers Zurich for the general insurance package for the year 6/18/2010 to 6/18/2011.
Okay, thank you very much. Comments or questions from board members? Mr. Zipka?
No, I have none.
Mr. Snipes?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dents?
No.
Okay, so in other words, we're getting the same level of insurance, the same company we have now for $10,000 less.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Just briefly, Mr. Gray, because I think I know that you know the answer to this. Why would there be $10,000 less in the bill, considering it's the same coverage?
Market conditions have lowered. Our loss runs are not as high as they were in prior years, so that, taken into consideration with our history with travelers as well, brought the reduction about.
Okay. Thank you. It's also a good way of saying that the personnel, the staff we have here in the building, everyone from Public Works to police to everyone, the people that we insure know their jobs very well and do them well and don't make the kind of mistakes that get you sued, basically, is a nice way of putting it. So this goes a lot to the people that work here in the building for Falls Township. They help bring these prices down through their professionalism and their expertise. Okay, public comments. See no hands. All right, is there a motion then to go with Travelers Zurich for the year June 18th, 2010 to June 18th, 2011, the amount of $267,083?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Sufkin?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay, item 3 on our agenda is consider authorizing advertisement of a code amendment for the zoning code. This is changing a zoning designation for one of the properties here in Falls Township. Mr. Gray?
Yeah, at this time, the board is asked to consider authorizing advertisement by amending Chapter 209 by changing the zoning tax map parcel number 13-17-210-001 from the AQ Age Qualified District classification to the NC Neighborhood Commercial classification. The board is asked to consider authorizing advertisement at this time, and in addition, Mr. Sullivan and I are here to answer any questions.
Okay. The property in question is a property on Trenton Road. It's actually a Citgo service station right behind Avonroe. At some point in the past, that service station got zoned age qualified, which obviously Avonroe is an age qualified zoning. That means it's it's why we have the houses there, the homes that are there, but there's no real reason for a service station to be classified as age qualified, and it puts certain limitations, Mr. Sullivan, on what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and so
you can't have a service station in the age qualified.
Right. So no, they can't. Technically, they're not really even allowed to operate. We're not really sure when this switch happened.
Well, the original zoning was HRE, high residential elderly. That happened, we think, at least 30 years ago. When this recent zoning code update was adopted by the board, we changed HRE to AQ, and at that time, the zoning was not changed for this property, 909 Trenton Road.
Okay.
That being determined, probably be an oversight, the actual applicant for this project or this zoning change is the township.
Okay. All right. So obviously, it's a mistake that was made at some point in the past, and we're just trying to correct it. Is there any board comment needed?
No.
It's pretty straightforward.
No.
Any public comment? See no hands. Okay. All right. Is there a motion then? We're just considering authorizing advertisement. We can't approve this till we authorize the advertisement. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved to advertise.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. Item 4 on our agenda is consider authorizing advertisement of the code amendment to Chapter 168 Parks. This is subsection 15A. Mr. Gray?
Board is asked to consider authorizing advertisement by amending Chapter 168, enacting a requirement where pets would be required to keep a leash no greater than 10 feet in length. At this time, the board is asked to consider authorizing advertisement. In addition, Mr. Reese from the Park and Rec Department is here as well for any questions.
Okay. And this would apply only to parks?
Parks.
I believe legally we are not allowed to limit leash lengths in the township overall. I'm saying Ms. Mintz nod her head.
Yeah. Sorry.
And so, so this would apply just to parks. Mr. Reese, if you wouldn't mind just making a couple comments. I know some of your security guards have had some concerns.
Yes. I guess for the last...
I don't know if that's on. That might not be on. That's off. The other one's on.
How's that? Is that good?
That's good.
I'll just stand this back a little bit. Over the past year or so, a lot of my park security staff, we would meet monthly or approximately once a month, and we would discuss various safety issues throughout the park. And one of the things that came up was the leash law about we didn't have one. So, we feel, have communication with Mr. Gray about it, and I think Pete agreed, as far as possibly creating some kind of leash law due to the traffic of the park, the amount of people, the amount of pedestrians who walk their dogs, a lot of people who not only ride their bicycles but rollerblade, and we just feel that if we create a leash law, that would really, I think, would cut down safety issues, cut down possible problems with pedestrians and people on bicycles.
Okay, because I've had some people talk to me, people that visit the park, and they see it as a problem if someone has a 20-foot, or in some cases, I know one of the security guards pointed out there's somebody with 100-foot of rope that goes out and walks their dog with a 100-foot rope wrapped around their arm, and they just sort of let it go when they want to. That creates numerous safety problems. Number one, if you're riding a bike and the dog has a leash that's sort of zigzagging all over the pathway, that's a problem. But also, if your dog's 20, 30, feet, 100 feet away from you, you don't have a lot of control over that dog if they want to go after somebody or another dog or
Right.
anything else.
Exactly, yeah.
And so I know those are concerns that I've heard from people,
Right.
but including some of the security guards.
Correct.
So-
If I could just mention,
Sure.
my park security staff and Ralph, he's the head of my. He wanted to be here tonight as well. I just want I'm glad we're going to create a leash law. We would certainly recommend a 6-foot leash law only because of the path around both parks is approximately 5 to 6 feet in width. And we just feel with the number of people using it, if we could create something that's, possibly 6 foot in that area of a leash length, it really, I think people would have a lot more control over their dogs. So when people do come by with their bicycles, or, a lot of times when people are walking, they have their radios on, and, and by the time somebody comes by them, they get surprised, and, we would certainly recommend that. Well, I mean, 10 foot is certainly a lot better than we have now, but that would be our recommendation.
Okay. All right.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
why don't we make it 6? Because people are going to push it to a longer length anyway, and I think some of these automatic leashes you buy, they automatically come 10 foot. But if we put on here, 6 foot, at least it gives our security personnel a certain amount of latitude if they, if they do have a 10 foot leash, where if we put 10 foot and they start pushing it to 12 and 14.
Well, I think one of the reasons why it was moved to 10 was because what you just said, that a lot of the automatic leashes already come in 10-foot lengths. And so it does seem a little bit, if you have leashes that come in a 10-foot length and you say you can only do 6-foot leash, it's a little bit, it's easier just to let the leash out and it hits the end, it's 10 feet, rather than sort of like, is it 6, is it 7, is it 8? But I'm interested to hear other comments from, and we're just advertising this evening, but obviously we want to advertise it the way we want to pass it.
Yeah.
Mr. Snipes, comments or questions?
I'd be interested in hearing from residents who are actually out there walking their dogs and using the park. I mean, I'm taking, Mr. Reese, what you're saying, for believing it's true what the park guards are concerned about. I'd like to hear what the concerns of residents. I don't have a dog that I walk in the park, so I'm not really well versed with it, but the points you're raising make sense. But I also want to be, generous and fair to people that are walking their dogs and not being too stringent on them.
Mr. Dents?
I agree with both. I mean, I would like to hear more from residents. I'm personally not a fan of leash laws. It's up to the dog owner to control the dog. I mean, and if you have a 6-foot wide path and a 10-foot leash, the dog is going to jump no matter what. Right. Even with a 6-foot leash, honestly. But yeah, like I said, I'm not a fan of leash laws. But I'd like to hear what more residents have to say about it as well.
Okay.
People that actually use the park and walk the dogs, or have you had documented cases of dogs actually leaping on people? And stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Most of that situation has come from the dog park, but I think one of the things that we concern is because we have so many more people using the park and walking the park, both walkers, joggers, bicyclers, rollerbladers, and there's a gazillion people with dogs there. So it's really, and the path is only 5 or 6 feet in width, depending where you are, on either phase 1 or phase 2. If I could just mention one more thing, we did find out that Core Creek Park, Bucks County does have a 6-foot leash ordinance or law or whatever in their park rules. So just to mention that, that's all.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, one last thing. I'm glad you said that, Mr. Reese. Do we know what our neighboring municipalities say about their public facilities, 6-foot, 10-foot, no leash at all?
I believe Bristol has a 6-foot leash law, I think in the whole township, honestly.
Well, I don't know I don't think you can do it by township. I think it has to be within parks. I think the state law, Ms. Mintz, if you can comment on that, is the state law, I think, restricts what local municipalities can do. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, it does allow local municipalities to make certain laws regarding controlling dogs, but it is generally limited to parks as far as the information that we've obtained.
Okay. All right.
Well, yeah, that's my question. What do other municipalities do in their parks nearby us? And I don't know. I'd be curious to know. We don't have to do what they do, but I'm just curious to know.
Right. Okay. All right. Is there any? I see a hand for a public comment. Is there any? As a motion to open public comment,
So
please.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. You need to use the microphone. Sorry.
I'm an avid bicyclist at the park, and I find that the park is congested at the dog park. So if you had that leash law, it might restrain the dogs from jumping up on the bicyclists that have to go around on the grass now on the mounds. We don't have that 6-foot path. We have to go around, and we have to be courteous to the dog people and the rollerblades, so I go off the side. So it might be a good idea to implement that at the park.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you. Any other public comment? No? Okay. All right. What is the pleasure of the board then? I mean, obviously we can do a couple things. We can table this, if we wanted to have some more time to review it, we could approve it as is. We could approve it, maybe changing it from 10 feet to 6 feet. What's the pleasure of the board?
Now, we're authorizing for advertisement, right?
Just advertisement. So we would have to meet on this again, presumably at our next meeting. Although it doesn't have to be at our next meeting, we could advertise it now and approve it sometime later.
Right, but if you want to find out what the other municipalities are
Right.
doing, we ought to table this.
Table it.
Okay. Is there a motion to table?
So moved.
Yeah, I'll second it.
All right. Motion made and seconded to the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just don't want the park guards or our park and rec director to think that we're not taking this seriously or that we're not concerned. We just want to do a little more research.
Okay.
And we appreciate you bringing it to us.
All right.
Bill, see if you can find out what other communities with their parks are doing with the length of the leashes. Thank you.
Okay. All right, item 5 on the agenda is consider authorizing the township manager to finalize the award for the 2010 road program, the mill and overlay, to General Asphalt. Mr. Gray?
For the 2010 mill and overlay program, the 30-day responsible contractors period will be completed prior to the next Board of Supervisors meeting in July. In order to continue the process, I'm requesting the board to considering allowing myself, the township manager, to finalize the award for the 2010 mill and overlay program, contingent upon a successful outcome of the engineer's responsible contractor review. The board is asked to consider this at this time.
All right. This is something we have done before, especially in the summertime. We go down to one meeting a month. If we were to wait until our next meeting, which I think is scheduled to be 5 weeks from today, we would have to wait on the mill and overlay program. And Mr. Sullivan, when exactly is it going to come? The 30-day review period will end when?
Early next week.
Okay.
Either Monday or
So
Tuesday.
we could really begin moving at some point early next week or by the end of the month, or we could wait until the end of July.
That's correct.
All right, so by doing this, authorizing the township manager to review the information given to him by the solicitor, by the engineer, if that information is what it needs to be, if the law has been met as we ask it to be, then he can give the authorization. We're authorizing him to give the authorization to move forward with the road program so we can get moving as soon as possible. Comments or questions from board members? Mr. Zupka?
No, I have none. Good idea.
Mr. Snipes?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dents?
None.
Okay, I have none. Any comments or questions? See no hands. Okay, is there a motion then to consider authorizing the township manager to finalize the award for the 2010 road program to General Asphalt?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Item 6, consider authorizing advertisement of the bids for the 2010 road program. This is a reconstruction. This is the full-depth reconstruction, not just the taking off of the top layer of the asphalt and pouring new asphalt. This is a complete reconstruction. Mr. Gray?
Yes, at this time, the board is asked to consider authorizing advertisement of the 2010 road program. This is the reconstruction, as mentioned. The roads to be included are Berwyn Road, Curtis Drive, Oxford Road, J Drive, Stevens Road, and a section of Alden Avenue. T&M engineers will prepare the bid specs and complete the advertising requirements. At this time, the board is asked to consider authorization for advertisement of the 2010 road program.
Okay. Mr. Sullivan, what's the timetable for this project?
We anticipate to be out to bid before the end of this month.
Okay.
And therefore, we'll have the bid opening and be prepared for a notice of intent at the July 20th meeting.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Comments or questions from board members? Mr. Zupka?
None.
Mr. Snipes?
No, Mr. Chairman, only remembering the residents who were raising the issue of the driveways that they had put in. And have we discussed more with them, or we're waiting to get back to them, or how are we handling that?
I think you have had discussions sort of between us, sort of individually, but I guess we'll come to some kind of determination as to what we want to do, and we'll probably have to vote on that at the next meeting.
Okay. All right, that's it.
Mr. Dents?
No.
Okay. Comments or questions from public? Seeing no hands. All right. Is there
Mr. Sullivan, the date again for that?
the question about the date? The next meeting is July 20th, and that is when we would, if the bids will come in, we'll announce at that point the low bidder, and that starts a 30-day review process to make sure that that bidder is actually qualified to do the job. We don't want to, don't have to just give the low bidder. We have to make sure they're qualified too, and we have a 30-day process for that. So, okay. All right, is there a motion then to authorize the advertisement for the bids?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. All right, we're going to take just a brief recess, please. Thank you. All right, I'm going to continue with our meeting here. We are at public comment, and we'll remind everyone to, we'd like to keep 5 minutes to each speaker, and 45-minute maximum. It doesn't look like that'll be an issue this evening. First name on the list is Roland Kinney.
Roland Kenny, Falls Township. First, I want to thank, on behalf of the township, our two chiefs, Chief Wilcox and Chief DiPolito, for keeping the people under them safe, to keep us safe last year. As you probably know, there was 116 or 119 police officers killed and 90 firefighters. We didn't lose one in this township, and I think it's because of the leadership. So I just want to thank them on behalf of the township. As you know, I volunteer at Penn Manor, and on the 3rd, we got Long and Foster, 20 people from Long and Foster. Lisa Lynn brought them to spend the day with us. So 20 of them came out and worked in the garden. They came with rakes and shovels and take out, the day to help us. She sent me a little note. Thanks, Roland, for cheering us on yesterday. We had such a good time and learned so much from Mike. Mike takes care of the garden. She says Pennsbury Manor is such a gem to the area, and we were proud to help in a little way. Best, Lisa Lynn. So I just want to thank the people from Long and Foster Real Estate for doing that. I thought it was pretty nice. Next, these meetings are 7:30. We're catering to one person. Everybody I talk to say, why don't we have them at 7 like we used to? And I understand, she feeds the elderly. Well, old people got to eat at 6, 5 or 6. They can't be eating at 7. It's bad for them. So I think you ought to make up a schedule and go back to 7. I think you'll get more people in this audience. There he goes. He's laughing. All right. With that, I'm going to say good night.
Okay. Thank you.
Good night.
Kay Martin.
Hi. This good? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you.
Oh, bring that down.
Oh, okay.
We've got it, Mr. Kinney. We've got it.
Got it, okay. I'm here, I'm Kay Martin, Falls Township. I'm a retired counselor, and with me is?
I'm Dixie Rhodes. I'm a retired school teacher.
And the two of us are here representing Aging in Place, Lower Bucks County. We're forming Aging in Place to help seniors live independently with freedom and safety, which are two new issues for seniors living alone in their homes, and to live independently in their homes. I would certainly like to I'm almost here 60 years in North Park, and I like the community, and I'm healthy and I can stay there, but I really do begin to need services and support. And we've been meeting with a core group of 15 committed, thoughtful people, the second and the fourth Thursdays, 7 to 8:30 at Falls Township Senior Center. And we've been meeting for 2.5 years. I'll just give you a brief history of how I hit upon Aging in Place. August 14th, 2007, I was listening to the radio in my kitchen. Joan Hamburg, WOR, New York, she was reading an article in the New York Times, and it got my attention. She said, grassroots effort to grow old at home. So I went to the Levittown Library, read the article, researched it, and wondered if anybody else was interested in starting what they call a village, Aging in Place. And I went to the Courier, and they researched my research. And on January 5th, 2008, there was a very comprehensive article came out on a Saturday on Aging in Place. And my phone started ringing. About 25 people called me, and Brian Duke had left a message. He had read it, the director of the area of aging in Doylestown. And so since then, we have been meeting, and we have a counsel, a woman attorney who's working pro bono for us. And we're making progress on this whole issue of seniors staying in their homes and dealing with, one of the things I had to deal with, I had a small leak under the kitchen sink, and I had a plumber come out, and he wanted $600 to fix it, and I signed that, and then a friend called, and I told her about the plumber, and she said, call my plumber, and her plumber fixed it for $200. Now, I'm kind of at the mercy of plumbers or calling because I don't know any because I'm there by myself. So that just shows me I couldn't really live there too long if I was getting these prices from people as I'm calling in the Yellow Book for help. So these are some of the issues that older people are coming upon as they're staying in their homes, and I want to stay there because I really like Falls Township. Dixie can probably fill in and give us an update.
Sure. Is it all right if I speak?
Absolutely, sure.
First of all, we are a volunteer-first organization, grassroots, and the whole premise is it's a three-tiered system. We will help people volunteer first. If you have washers that need to be repaired, perhaps we have a volunteer that can do that, and you won't have to call a plumber. Anything, you need your dog walked, you're going to go away for a while, we could take care of that as well. There's a second tier, and that is that we would provide names of people, plumbers, who will do something in a reasonable and customary way. Any sort of repairs, handyman type of things, but they have to be fully licensed. And then the third tier of our project is going to be a social tier, having trips to cultural things as well as maybe to the casino, having book lectures, seminars, and things like that. We have been working very, very closely with the Falls Senior Center, and we have a fine collaborative effort going there, and we would like to have one with Falls Township as well. And we...
That's all right. Go keep going.
Okay, I'm sorry. And in our plans, we are also going to have seminars, such as something presented by the AARP, of which we are now affiliated, St. Mary's Hospital, AREA, and perhaps Falls Township would like to have somebody, a policeman or someone, come and speak of safety for the seniors of Falls Township. So we just want to get that out, and if anybody would like to volunteer, we meet the second and fourth Thursdays of each month at the Falls Township Senior Center at 7 o'clock. Thank you.
All right, and I believe, Mr. Gray, we have information about the Aging in Place on our channel. Is that correct?
I believe we do. If we don't, we'll make sure it's up there. I
Okay.
believe it is there, though.
All right, yeah,
Yeah.
because it certainly is something, I've talked with Mrs. Martin several times.
Yeah.
And you, I mean,
Thank you.
you have your 503C status?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
pending, so
yeah.
you're working on,
We're working on a nonprofit status and incorporation, and we have the funding for that. And I want to thank you for the project manager advertisement, too. We're looking for a volunteer project manager. We have 2 great candidates so far.
Good.
It's going to help us pull all of this together, because we're grassroots, and what do we know?
Yeah. Well, you're
We're
doing,
learning.
Yeah, you're doing a great thing. It's certainly a wonderful service that you're providing, and obviously we appreciate you know, your efforts and anything we can do to help you. Obviously, it's certainly a worthy cause.
Great, thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you. Okay. Terry Sterling?
Yes. Yes. Very similar, yes.
Similar, or is it the same?
No, it's similar. It's not the same.
Oh, thank you.
No. Not yet. No, we're working on that.
Good evening. I have a petition here of signatures that represent Falls Township residents who live on Alden Avenue and Winding Way. We are extremely upset and concerned with the excessive speeders, high-flying Pennsbury school buses, and amateur drag racers, and vehicles that do not stop at stop signs. This is a 25-mile-per-hour residential area, and they're both snow emergency routes. We have disabled residents, we have toddlers, and we would expect Falls Township to cooperate with us. We want a permanent resolve for these reoccurring traffic issues. Mrs. Brown is present with me. Chief Wilcox has worked with us in the past 3 years to put the speed monitoring device on both streets, as well as slow down signs, and all the vehicles just tend to just blow them off, wave their hands at us, and ignore both the device and the slow down signs. Some drivers accelerate as they pass by. We have exhausted these routes, and we are disgusted. If necessary, we will go before the Department of Transportation. I thank you very much, and I have some residents here that have some comments. Things that were mentioned to me by the 66 signatures I have on Alden and Winding Way, they're the only 2 streets that I'm concerned with. They would like a traffic light placed at Makefield and Winding Way, and I believe you people should know that our guard, John, got hit by a Pennsbury bus there last year. There's students crossing there for another week. School will reopen in September. It's very, very congested. It needs to be looked at. Possible light there or Penn's Grant, I don't know where, but that intersection is poorly visible to get out, to go either left or right on Winding Way, and I hope that you'll consider some of these things. A couple of things that I did forget to mention. Someone wanted a stop sign at Winding Way in Alden. I would like speed bumps. I have 4 other residents here. An SB is by their name and a star. They prefer speed bumps, like in Middletown Township on Terrace. It works well there. The snow plows get through. I have a fireman that signed this, Chief McClellan. He's opposed to speed bumps, but I think those larger vehicles will have no problems getting over the speed bumps. But we really have, and something else I'm not able to mention, but I will discuss that with Mr. Dents, who I've had a meeting with recently. We have something else on the streets that don't belong on the streets.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I thank you very much for hearing me out, and have a
All
nice
right.
evening.
I see Mrs. Brown and Mrs., is it Kent?
Kent and Mrs. Conell.
Okay, I know, so those are the names on there.
Conell on the list, sir, but...
Okay. All right, well, how about, we'll listen to Mrs. Brown and Mrs. Kent, and then,
I have been a resident, as I said before, since 1956 on my street. Excuse me. Winding Way. It is horrendous. The cars come down there and treat it like it was a super highway. They come in from Makefield Road and they go down because there's nothing to slow them down until they get down to, what's that first stop street? Not Alden.
The first stop?
No, all the way down where the stop sign is.
Vernon.
Vernon. And they go down and there is a stop sign there to slow them down, but that's 3 blocks before they hit that. It is awful. I have 4 little grandsons living with me now. My youngest daughter moved in. I won't even let them go on the front unless I'm right there with them. I make them stay in the backyard because I'm terrified that if they go out in the street, they're going to get killed. Some of these people don't realize what they're doing. They come down that road like it was a super highway. Something has got to be done to slow them down. We've begged for it before and nothing ever happened. It's got to the point now, it's getting out of hand. Putting your speed machine out there does no good. It does no good. We've put signs, slow down, does no good. They laugh at it. So now I think it's time that we're going to have to make an actual move to slow these people down some way. And I'm hoping that you will work with us and do something to stop them before something really bad happens. Because I have threatened, they ever hit one of my grandchildren, they better head for the hills because I'll go after them. Because 9 times out of 10, these people are speeding. And we do not need it. We need something done, and I'm asking you sincerely, please help us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Kent? Mrs. Kent? No? Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm assuming, obviously, Mrs. Sterling, Mrs. Brown said pretty much what you were going to say.
If I may add to my comments, I didn't.
Well, Mrs. Sterling, you're going to, yeah, you're going to, if you want, just to finish something off, you're going to need to use the microphone, that's all.
The lack of visibility with the law enforcement officials in Falls Township. I realize that they have districts that have heavier crime. We have a relatively safe neighborhood, so I'm told, but they're not around. They're not around when these things are occurring, so nobody can we can't go after these, you know, residents or the vehicles that are speeding. And you have other kinds of contraptions in the road, is what I wanted to say, that are little scooters type things in the middle of the road. They're traveling at a high velocity.
I know what you mean.
And if
Sure.
the person gets hurt,
Okay.
so it would be nice to have visibility maybe and start writing more tickets.
Okay.
That's the way to do it. Thank you.
Sure, yeah, ultimately, I think that's the big solution. One of the things that we've mentioned before, and this year we're trying to focus on traffic, and one of the things we've done, the police have bought, you know, for example, giving them the resources they need and to monitor speed at certain areas. Another one of the speed monitoring devices, and also a smaller one. We do plan on having a public meeting at some point this summer to address this, and having back our traffic engineers just to give us some ideas of things that we can do. One of the things to keep in mind is Makefield Road. Mr. Sullivan, Makefield Road, is it a state road or?
I believe it's Township Road.
It's a Township Road,
Yeah.
okay. There still are limits in terms of what we can do and when we put up stoplights and stop signs. You know, there are limits. Actually, you can't just put a stop sign up because, you know, actually PennDOT doesn't really let you put stop signs up to slow people down. They don't allow it for that reason. And so there are limits on what we can do in terms of stoplights and stop signs, but there are other things that we can do. And among them, certainly, we can talk to Chief Wilcox. I'm sure Mr. Gray will have a conversation about increasing visibility. And what they'll tell you is that most of the people that speed on that road are people that live on that road or live right off that road. It's not necessarily strangers, it's people who live there. And so that's something that they're going to find. It's fine if they're, I mean, you know, go ahead and speed, but if we're going to be writing more tickets, that's what we're going to have to be doing, and that's fine.
Your road is used for a cut through.
Mm-hmm.
They come off of Makefield and they cut through and go all the way out to West Trenton Avenue.
Okay.
They really are used for cuts.
And
Okay.
that is what they're using them for.
Okay.
A lot of them don't even live in the area.
Right.
The study will come later on in the summer.
Another thing, I wish you would request it. My husband was a police officer for 33 years.
I know.
I remember him saying that your best bet is visibility of the police.
Right.
It is half the battle. We do not see them.
Okay.
We do not see them on our side of the highway. We are Falls Township, but we
Yeah.
don't see them. I have great respect for the township police, but please tell them, come over our side of the highway once in a while,
Okay.
because we do have problems.
All right. Well, look, we hear you loud and clear. We'll make sure that Chief Wilcox knows your concerns, and we'll make sure that, like I said, the meeting we'll have is, I know he knows them. We'll know that we have the same concerns that you have, and so that's,
The only thing I'd like to add
well,
is one last
we-
thing about an accident that was on Makefield Road. The kid, I believe, was going 80 or 90 miles an hour, and the squad car was going into the substation there at Makefield in the Commons of Falsington. And the ambulance was going in very slowly, but the kid was going excessive, 80 or 90. I don't know what he was clocked at, but, and someone got killed. A young lady got killed and rolled out of the car, and then there was a memorial there. So it doesn't happen that often, but the excessive speeds do.
once is too much.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah. Once is
And
too
I had
much.
mentioned to Chief Wilcox that they could probably increase revenue for Falls Township if they stopped cars on Route 1. And guess what? Exactly what I said occurred 6 months later, and I thought, maybe I helped that. Two Falls Township police officers by Peruzzi and Pathmark.
Okay.
Ticketing cars, so, because I know they go 50 and 60 on that road, and
Sure.
it's a 40-mile. So anything that you can do to try to get them out there and visible, maybe speeding tickets would be first, and something else
Yeah.
more.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Those are all the names I have on the list. So we'll move on with item number 8, which is the minutes from June 1st, 2010. Comments or questions regarding the minutes as presented? Any corrections or suggestions? Mr. Zupka?
None.
Mr. Snipes?
Comments on the minutes, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
No.
Mr. Dents?
No.
And I have none. All right. Is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain. I wasn't at that meeting.
Okay. Engineers report is for dated June 10th, 2010. It is the May 2010 engineering report. Mr. Sullivan, any highlights on the report?
I'd just like to tell the board that we had the pre-construction meeting for the Challenger Field last week, and the anticipated start date is July 12th.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Comments or questions regarding the engineers report, Mr. Zupka?
Yes. I was going to ask you, Mr. Sullivan, about that. About how long approximately do you think it's going to take to do it if they get started on time?
The Challenger Field?
Challenger Field, yes, sir.
They have 60 days to complete
60
the project.
days? That's,
Yes, that's
okay.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone other comments or questions regarding the engineers report? Mr. Snipes?
No.
No? Okay. Mr. Dent said no. I have none. All right. No public comment needed, I imagine. There's nobody here, really. Is there a motion to accept the May 2010 engineering report dated June 10th, 2010?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Bill list is dated June 15th, 2010. The bills are in the amount of $1,401,894.35. Of that, 1.4 million, a little over 1 million is salaries and health care. And there's also some other items in here. A new vehicle for code enforcement, American Pool Management manages the Pinewood Pool, some money there for them. Traffic signal repair for one of the intersections here in Falls Township, as well as some upgrades to our computer services take up a good chunk of the bills. Comments or questions regarding bill list? Mr. Zupka?
None.
Mr. Snipes?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dents?
None.
I had none. Is there a motion to pay the bills dated June 15th, 2010 in the amount of $1,401,894.35?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
No.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay, it's not on our agenda this evening, I guess just left off, but we do actually have need for an executive session this evening, so we're going to break for an executive session at this time.
Go down Sandy first.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Jones. All right, we'll call our meeting back to order at 10:14. Finished our executive session. Ms. Mintz, can we have a summary of our executive session, please?
Yes, Chairman. During our executive session, we discussed a pending matter that is in litigation and the possible resolution of that litigation.
Okay, thank you. All right, up to manager comment. Mr. Gray?
Yes, thank you. Just a few items tonight. My first item, Bill Reese, Director of Park and Recreation, has prepared discount rates for those people interested in seeking to join the Pinewood Pool after July 15th. The rates that were tentatively put together are family memberships for $110 for residents and $172 for non-residents. Individual memberships, $60 for residents and $117 for non-residents. And senior citizens, $35 for residents and $45 for non-residents. The board is asked to consider approving these rates. Mr. Reese and myself are here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Mr. Reese, we have your memo here from June 11th, but obviously the people watching in TV land can't see it. So just give us an idea as to why you think this is necessary to go with sort of rates that, instead of starting Memorial Day, would start with July 15th.
Yeah, the last few years, we would get once in a while, or maybe a handful of people would call up, like during the month of July and August, if they had if we offered a discount rate, and we didn't at the time. So a lot of times people wouldn't sign up for the pool, and I was just thinking maybe somebody who just moved into the area, around July or middle of July, maybe we could offer like a discount rate for those type of people, or maybe people who can't afford to go for a whole summer would wait till like July and then maybe be able to sign up then.
Okay. All right. Comments or questions, Mr. Zupka?
Nope.
Mr. Snipes?
No, when Mr. Reese makes sense, I just wonder from your experience, is there going to be a flood of people who normally would have paid the full freight and began at the beginning of the summer who are now going to wait? I mean, I don't know whether we're worried about that or not.
Mr. Snipes, I guess I can't really answer that. I don't think that would be the case. I think that would be more of people who would, for whatever reason, who couldn't come in May or wouldn't be able to, or just moved in or just decided because the hottest part of the year is July and August, that they would just, maybe we can, if they don't have to pay the whole amount, maybe they would do that. Just something, to offer the public. I don't see a lot of people not signing up in May, because a lot of times people sign up in June, like towards the end of May and during the month of June. We get a lot of memberships then too. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Dents?
No.
I don't have anything either. Okay. And we would, I guess, we'd just authorize the new rates. Is there just a motion to authorize the new rates for the discounted rates for a half season?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
My next item, I'm sorry.
That's right. That's right.
My next item, I have a letter from Kurt Schaefer representing the Learning Experience. They have an application on New Falls Road, LLC, located at 8829 New Falls Road. They are requesting an extension of time on their application until September 30th, 2010. The board is asked to consider this time extension.
All right. Don't imagine there's any comments or questions. Is there a motion to grant the letter of extension to the Learning Experience until September 30th, 2010?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
My next item, I have a letter from Mr. Tom Hecker representing Viking. They have a land development project which is set to expire on June 21st. They are requesting an extension of time for 90 days on this project as well. The board is asked to consider this 90-day extension.
Is it a 90-day extension or indefinite? It says in the fourth line down, please accept this letter as the grant of an indefinite extension for action.
What?
It's permitted. I mean, he does later on. He talks about a 90-day deadline.
Oh, right.
He's asking for it to be indefinitely
Indefinite.
Okay, so it's an indefinite. And this is the proposed senior apartment building that would go right behind the Residence of Independence Drive, basically on West.
To the post office.
Yeah, next to the post office, next to the Marsville Post Office. All right, so looking to grant an indefinite extension for the Viking land development. Comments or questions? If not, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just for the record, this matter is on appeal.
Right. From the
So
zoning
nothing
issue,
can
so-
occur as far as land development while the matter is on appeal.
Right, correct.
Okay.
I'm just, Mr. Chairman, not used to dealing with an indefinite extension, so what are we actually agreeing to? We're agreeing to, I mean,
Well, because otherwise we'd have to keep coming back every 2 or 3 months to grant another letter of extension, another letter of extension, another letter of extension, so I think he's just doing an indefinite letter of extension until the appeal's over. And then once the appeal's over, I guess the clock would start again.
Right. And if I may, just to make sure we're clear on this, once the appeal period is over, he's saying that then the 90-day period would start again, and he would ask for an
Right.
extension. So
Right.
he's barred from doing anything while we're on appeal, and an indefinite extension will not.
Yeah.
it's not really indefinite. It's
Detrimental.
indefinite until the appeal is.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. I just didn't want to lock us into something until the year 3000.
Right.
I mean, an infinite letter of, yeah.
Okay.
All right, is there a motion to grant the indefinite extension?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
My next item, just a few announcements from the Park and Recs Department. The summer concert series will be held at the Falls Township Community Park Phase 1 Pavilion beginning on Sunday, June 27th. These concerts will take place from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., starting June 27th through August 29th, and these concerts are free for the public. There are various special events being held at the Pinewood Pool throughout the summer, such as family movie night, teen dances, picnic days, grandparent days, and senior citizen breakfasts. In addition, there are pool rentals available as well after hours. You can rent the Pinewood Pool for either a 2 or 3 hour rental per day. The annual Falls Township Family Festival is scheduled for Saturday, September 11th. It will be held at the Falls Township Community Park from 3 p.m. to approximately 9:15. If anyone would like to be a part of the Family Festival, such as volunteering their time, a food vendor, setting up a business, or being involved in any other way, please call the Park and Rec Department. If anyone has any other questions revolving around any other Park and Rec related event, please call 215-949-9000, extension 220, 221, or 222. And that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go to board comment now. Mr. Snipes, want to start us off?
Mr. Chairman, yes, just quickly, the July 10th Great Shredder event. Has anyone mentioned that yet? We
I
all
don't
got
think so,
that.
no. Mr. Gray usually does, but I think you skipped it.
The Falls Township Police are offering to shred documents, township documents, residence documents, paper only, no plastic bags, residents only, no businesses. And that'll be here at the Township Building, 188 Lincoln Highway, is that correct? Where would people come on July 10th? With
In the back
entrance?
parking lot.
In the back parking lot.
There will be
okay.
signs posted.
Right. Yep, that's it. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dents?
We said Ms. Sterling and the residents from Winding Way with their traffic concerns, and we've discussed many times that this isn't just on Winding Way, but all over the township. And I guess it was a few months ago we paid Traffic Planning and Design to put a proposal together for us. Maybe we could expedite that and get that on a future agenda item sooner than later, and get rolling with that.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, sure. Mr. Zupka?
Thank you. In the next few days, I guess all the schools will be letting out for the summer. So to kind of piggyback on with what was being said earlier today about the speeding and the reckless driving in the neighborhoods, please keep in mind the youngsters will be out there and they definitely will be playing in the streets, and you just have to be aware of of them being out there in the next few days. They'll be out there probably quite a bit, and watch your speed and watch for the children darting out in front of you. That's all. Have a good summer, or have a good 4th of July in the next couple days.
Okay, thank you. All right, yeah, a few things. I wanted also to mention the Shredder event on July 10th, as Mr. Snipes did. We'll have information on the website, I believe, about that, as well as the Township channel. And the same day, this has been a tradition last, 3 years maybe they've done this? Both these things together?
Yes, about 3-4 years, yeah.
All right, also is the bicycle auction, same day, starting 9 in the morning, and you better get here fast if you are looking for bikes. And these are bicycles that the police have come across in various ways. They may be bicycles that residents of the township have had stolen, and so you always can come and take a look in that sense. And some of these bikes just have not been claimed, and they've been here for a while, and so if no one claims them, then they auction them off. And that's also, again, behind this building in the back. You can start inspecting the bikes at 8:30. You have to pay with cash or a check, no debit or credit cards at that time. And the shredder will be literally right next to that, so you can bring boxes of, papers, bank statements, credit card bills, things that have that information you don't want to just necessarily throw in the trash can or recycling. It gets shredded, very, very secure, as was pointed out earlier. Okay, let's see what else I had. Our next meeting, I'm assuming that we are going to go to one meeting a month for July and August, if that's a typical practice here at the Township. The next meeting would be the 20th of July. That would be the third Tuesday in July. Mr. Dents had brought up the issue of traffic, and I'd mentioned earlier this evening the possibility of setting up sort of a town hall meeting just in this building, in this room, that would allow our traffic engineers as well as the police department to discuss with residents issues about traffic like the ones we heard this evening, both with the walking on roadways. Mr. Zupka brings up all the time the issue of people choosing to walk in the roadway when they have perfectly good sidewalks right there. And also issues of speeding and things of that nature would allow people to come forward and talk to the police, talk to the traffic engineers, and the proposal that the traffic engineers did kind of bring forward as to ways that other municipalities usually try and fight traffic issues, that can be talked about at that meeting as well. Possibly looking, not necessarily as a board meeting, but certainly as a special meeting sometime in late June, excuse me, or early July before our next meeting, giving people a chance to come out and air those views. So I'll be in contact with board members, just giving you an idea of some dates that are going to be available, and we'll talk to our engineers and our police department, see what dates they're available with, and try and set up a format. The one thing it's always touchy with this is you don't want to necessarily make this put a target on the chief of police, so people just come out and start yelling at him for not doing a good job. That's not the case. It's not what we want this to turn into. We want this to be something we're working together. Where are some of the areas that we need to be focusing on? We don't want to turn this into a situation where people are coming out and in sort of like angry attitudes toward the police. We're trying to do this in a way that's going to be the most beneficial to everybody. So we want to make sure it's run properly. So we'll do that at some point late June or early July, I think, before our next meeting, since we have some time. And as Mr. Zupka stated, 4th of July is coming up, so everybody have a safe 4th of July. And I'm going to thank the Delaware Valley Vietnam veterans, as well as the employees of the Park and Rec Department, as well as Public Works, for all their efforts over this past weekend at the 25th annual Donald Jones Flag Memorial, which has been held in Falls Township Park for several years now. It's a great event. Got a very good story in the paper the other day, and it's really sort of a perfect tribute to Flag Day, to remember all those who died protecting our country and the symbol that they fought under. No better tribute, I guess, to the flag than that. So I want to thank them for all their hard work, all the people out there volunteering their time, and our employees that were helping them out all weekend. If you didn't get a chance to get there this past weekend, do it next year. It's a really wonderful event, very touching, very moving event. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.